Greetings, everyone. Coming to you today to share with you our annual report. This report has been available online since January, but in discussions with our Finance Council, we thought it would be good to present a more detailed explanation of our annual report, seeing it's a year of that we dealt with pandemic, and also a year where we consolidated 3 parishes into one. The report and the presentation will be given by Chad Laliberte, who is the chairperson of our Finance Council. And he goes into detail about our Finance Council and what a Finance Council is expected to do, as well as the financial status of the parish and plans moving forward. The video is longer than most of the videos that we've done, but it is filled with some very important information, allowing future videos to be shorter. So please be aware of that and be patient with us. And I turn you over to Chad Laliberte, the chairperson of our Finance Council.
Hello, my name is Chad Laliberte, and I'm the chair of the Finance Council for St. Matthew's the Evangelist in Billerica. I want to thank Father Vaney for giving me the opportunity just to chat, give an introduction, not only of myself, but the Finance Council, give a summary of our financial state as a parish, and our go-forward initiatives for the upcoming fiscal year starting in July. Folks in the parish don't know me, so I want to just give a brief introduction as to me, and then talk a little bit more about the function of the Finance Council. My wife Allison and I moved to Billerica in 2012 after we got married, and we became parishioners of St. Andrew's. And then starting in 2017, we were starting to get more active. We were welcomed and invited to join the 150th anniversary celebration committee and help with the planning of some events and some other types of logistics for that celebration or anniversary year. And then starting in 2018, which was a busy year for me, we became Eucharistic ministers. And then in October of 2018, I was appointed to be a member of the Finance Council. And when St. Matthew the Evangelist Parish was established, starting in October of 2020, I was appointed to be the chair of the Finance Council. And just professionally, I just joined Johnson & Johnson's law department as a senior counsel this past April. And before that, for just over 13 years, I was in Oracle Corporation's legal department, leaving as senior managing counsel. There's a little bit of confusion as to what the Finance Council is and what it does. So let me just give some quick background. Following Vatican II, Canon Law 537 established the requirement for every parish to actually have a Finance Council. So, and that Finance Council is designed to aid the pastor in the administration of parish goods. And parish goods means the finances, the income that's the revenue, and how to manage it. But one thing to note is that the Finance Council is a consultative body. It's providing guidance and suggestions. It's not an official capacity with overrides like Congress, so what we can do is we provide suggestions to Father Vaney, and based on our experiences, it may be an issue that he presents or a question, and we can provide some counsel. But to be honest, ultimately, it's up to him to take that counsel and make decisions. If he decides to disregard something that's been suggested by the Finance Council, that's fine. There's nothing that the Finance Council can do to somehow override that. So St. Matthew the Evangelist's Finance Council is comprised of 7 members, 2 ex officio members, pastor, which is Father Vaney, and the Director of Finance and Operations, which is Chris Kilburn. And then the remaining 5 members are lay parishioners who are not employed by the parish. That's Sharon Crescio, Trish Holland, Don Casey, Dan Quattrochi, and myself. And every month we get together for at least 90 minutes, and Father Vaney and Chris raise different types of financial matters, and we all talk about it. And we go through financial statements, we talk about different prospective initiatives or issues, and provide our suggestions from there. Now, another important group is a subcommittee of the Finance Council known as the Building Committee. And they're comprised of individuals with a background in construction and facility repairs, and they have a good knowledge of maintenance. And what they do is they take a look, they walk through, they inspect the various buildings on our 3 campuses and determine, hey, look, there's a problem over here with this building. This needs repairs. And they can give estimates as to the extent of the repairs and the general cost of it, so that we can figure out how to properly prioritize what repairs to go with. And they give regular reports to both the pastor and the Finance Council, and that's how, and then the general cost. And so that's how we prioritize and determine what we can and can't pay for, and how to properly prioritize those particular expenses. So one thing I want to raise is the Code of Conduct, which is an obligation that's imposed on all Finance Council members. And what that is we are holding all the information and comments that are shared and attributed to particular individuals as confidential. And what that's designed to do is create an environment where all the members can speak freely, candidly, thoughtfully, creatively, without having to worry about another member going and sharing those comments across the parish, which then turns into rumors and gossip, and as you know, then the accuracy of the comments turn into something else. Because if that were to happen, people would be apprehensive to share their thoughts, and so that doesn't do anyone any good. So one thing to note is a lot of what we discuss, we can't freely share across the parish. It's designed to be consultative and leverage the expertise of the various individuals on the council for the pastor's use, not as some gossip or political position within the parish. Now, I want to reemphasize that doesn't necessarily mean that parishioners can't ask a council member about issues, finance issues in particular, or to raise certain issues at the meeting. We can certainly do that. But if you do approach and want to ask about financial issues with the parish, please just be mindful of the Code of Conduct and just refrain from questions that are specific to, well, what did so-and-so say at your finance council? Or what's the position that you have on this particular matter? If you ask a question such as, I heard we're running a little shy on our offertories and we have to cut expenses, how are you going to do that? Well, at that point, or it may impact the masses on the weekend, what are your thoughts on that? Expect the particular type of response to sound something to the effect of, oh, the Finance Council is well aware of that. We chatted about that particular issue at our last meeting. We talked about XYZ issues. We raised the pros and cons of finding ways to save money in these different ways. And as a whole, the council advised Father Aveni to do X. As you know, it's a consultative body as a whole. We're speaking on behalf of the council as a whole. It's nothing specific. So don't expect, I'm in favor of cutting this type of expense, but Chad said something else and I don't agree with him, he's wrong, and Dan said something else and Sharon wanted something. Everyone's crazy, they were all wrong. That's not the type of comment or feedback or response that we're going to get into. And in fact, if any of the members were to share that level of granularity at our meetings, that would be grounds to remove them. So please just be respectful of the Code of Conduct and just note that we're not trying to get around or be shifty or sneaky or anything like that, but rather protect the integrity of those meetings. But at the same point, we will be transparent. We're happy to raise financial issues that you may see or sense as a parishioner, and then provide the feedback and the results from the following meeting. So one of the things that we are going to be stressing in the upcoming fiscal year, which starts on July 1st, is increased communication. I know Father Abani a couple of years ago talked about that when he came to Bill Ricca, that we really, a lot of parishioners were unaware of a lot of things that they should be aware of, but because they don't see it in, their day-to-day interactions at the parish, they're unaware of it. And what I'm thinking of is just the state of the condition of our buildings. People didn't realize how bad, like for instance in the rectory, that there was a lot of leaking and which led to extensive mold damage in the rectory, and that required tens of thousands of dollars of repair. So those are the types of things that parishioners should be aware of, and so you'll see more communications as a result to avoid any shock, and you can get a sense of any upcoming initiatives in order to improve our financial standing as a parish. And those types of updates will come as a combination of updates from Father Abani as well as from the Finance Council. At this point of the presentation, let me talk about the state of our parish finances. The fiscal year 2019 to 2020 annual financial reports for the three former parishes, St. Andrews, St. Mary's, and St. Teresa's, is available on the BillRiccaCatholic.org website. So if you navigate to BillRiccaCatholic.org and you scroll 3/4 of the way down the web page, you will find the following link. Catholic Community of Bill Ricca 2019 to 2020 financial reports. So if you click on that particular link, you will find, you will land on this next page. Here you'll find the three former parishes. This will be the final annual financial reports for the 2020 fiscal year. As you go through the annual financial reports of all three of the former parishes, you'll notice that it covers fiscal years 2019 and 2020. In this particular slide, this is meant to summarize and boil down some of the key figures in those reports, and in addition to give some additional context as to what those figures represent. So here I actually added, in addition to fiscal years 2019 and 2020, fiscal year 2018. And what you'll notice that is over the course of the last three fiscal years, two of the three former parishes were running actually a budget deficit. So what I mean by a deficit is that the expenses of that parish exceeded the revenue of the parish. So examples of revenue would be the weekly offertories, the grand annuals, any gifts or other donations from parishioners that would help with the financial contributions. Expenses would be the cost of staffing the parish, supplies, utilities, heat and electricity, maintenance costs, or any other incidentals that come up. Those are the expenses, and so that has been greater than the revenues. Now, if you look as a collaborative as a whole, that translates to a loss of $127,774 over the course of the last 3 years. One of the things to note is that the last 3 years is not an exception or an abnormality. Unfortunately, based on this table that Chris Kilburn had presented to the Finance Council in our last meeting, you'll see that over the course of the last 7 fiscal years, if you look at the rightmost column here, you'll notice that 6 of the last 7 fiscal years, the collaborative lost money. And if you total all that up, we ran at a deficit of $393,846. So over the last 7 years, we have lost just under $400,000 as a collaborative. So now, as you can tell, we've been trending in the wrong direction over the past 7 years. But how does that translate to pandemic offertory numbers? Well, if you go back to the BillRickaCatholic.org main page and you click on the offertory report through March 2021, you will find this table. So this table is very familiar to everybody, right? So this is the table that appears in all of our bulletins, and it's our weekly offertory for the month, starting in November of 2020 through last month, March of 2021. And one thing you'll notice is that each of these 5 months, we have run into the deficit. We've run into the red. And part of that, and it's gotten worse, because if you notice in November, we were just under 68,000, and it drops by almost 14,000. And it's been at that level for 2 months, and then in February it dropped down another couple $1,000s. And we've kind of been flat. So really the last several months have been the hardest months for us from an offertory perspective throughout the pandemic, believe it or not. And so just to kind of, I think one of the things is we've gotten so numb to seeing these deficit numbers on a monthly basis. If you add that up, we've really lost $227,854 in just 5 months. So let's compare and put this in perspective as to the last 3 years. To put some perspective on what the last 5 months have done for us financially, let's compare it to the last 3 years. So if you take the last 5 months and you average them, what we're making from an offertory perspective, we're collecting $56,483 per month. And if you multiply that by 12, that would be at an annual rate of $677,000, or just under $678,000. Well, okay, just to see how that compares, let's take a look at the last 3 years. So I brought the blue table back in from a previous slide. And if you look, the annual revenue, the lowest annual revenue or offertory amount was in fiscal year 2018 at $948,000. And the highest was just over $1 million in fiscal year 2019. So we're down considerably. We're down roughly a third from where we should be. And even at that rate, we were still losing money. We were losing $127,774. Now, on that previous slide, I mentioned we lost $227,854. So we lost $100,000 more in the last 5 months than what we've lost as a collaborative in the previous 3 years. So that's the financial health and the difficulty that we've been struggling with during the pandemic. So I know I've thrown a lot of figures and math at you. Let me try and sum it up in a slide or two here, and that is, as a result of those years of budget deficits, and particularly the last 5 months, the savings and checking accounts, the balances in those accounts for the parish are extraordinarily low. We're scraping by. We're getting month to month. Chris Kilburn has been doing an excellent job using creative means to pay off our bills in a timely fashion. Our silver lining in all of this during the pandemic has been the generosity of parishioners for the Grand Annual. And in fact, at our last Finance Council meeting on May 17th, the number has been that parishioners have given just over $170,000 to the Grand Annual. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The Finance Council is so appreciative. I know Father Vaney and Chris Kilburn have been so happy and really appreciative of everything that parishioners have given during these tough times, above and beyond what everyone's giving for the weekly offertories. That has been our lifeline. That's literally kept the lights on. In addition, the Archdiocese of Boston has been extremely generous for our parish. They have given loans to help pay the bills as well, and they've forgiven a significant amount of money towards those loans as well, including abatements. So they have helped us significantly through this tough time. But now at this point, it's up to us to figure out our next steps in closing the budget deficit. Now, there's one other thing I want to mention with regard to our current state of our finances. We have, as a parish, 3 campuses comprised of 7 church buildings, and they're all in need of extensive repair. Many of the buildings have the same key buzzwords. They have mold or asbestos issues. They may have structural damage that need to be repaired. And what has happened, and I don't think that this had been communicated to a lot of the parishioners, I know I was surprised until recently, and that is that these repairs, which probably cost tens of thousands of dollars in years past, came up, but because of the budget deficit, the thinking was, well, let's defer the maintenance, let's just kind of hold steady, and when cash flow improves, we'll address those repairs then. But it never came. That's the problem. And we never knew about it either. So now those years of deferred maintenance have actually turned into neglect. And the building committee, which is going through these buildings and identifying those problems, is already estimating that instead of it costing tens of thousands of dollars to repair these issues, it's now going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It just got that much worse. And so in order to properly conceptualize what's going on in the state of our buildings, they are preparing a video, which they'll be posting shortly on the parish website. And they'll be walking through the buildings on the 3 campuses, identifying what kind of damage and repairs that are needed and the general cost of it, so that all the parishioners have the transparency that's needed to understand the types of issues that the finance council are being asked to talk about. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's really up to us to kind of figure out our next steps. And the good news is I really do believe that we have control of our destiny and where the parish goes from here. Now, as the Finance Council does have an idea and a plan as to how to improve our financial situation. Now, there's really 2 ways to close the budget deficit. You increase weekly offertories and you decrease the expenses. So let's talk about increasing the offertory side of the equation for a moment. So the Archdiocese has communicated to Father Aveni and Chris Kilburn that the parish is experiencing a decrease in our offertory amounts from the pre-pandemic levels of roughly $9,800 per month. So let's break that down a little bit. If you divide that by 4 weeks, we're looking at a $2,450 per week shortfall, right? And Chris Kilburn had mentioned at a previous Finance Council meeting that of the parishioners, roughly 200 families are giving their weekly offertories via an envelope or online giving. And so if you divide that $2,450 by those 200 envelopes, that translates to $12.25 per envelope per week. So if you're giving on a regular basis through the offertory, if you can increase that amount that you give per week by $12.25, that would eliminate the $9,800 per month, right then and there. Additionally, as we emerge from the pandemic and the economy is recovering and hopefully we get back to pre-pandemic financial status or even better, one of the things is if you could just re-examine your financial status and if it's changed, if it's improved. 2 years ago, Father Aveni asked each parishioner to give their hourly income rate every week as their offertory. So it's essentially your first hour of work in a given work week would essentially be going to God. So for instance, if let's just say you're salaried, if you make $50,000 a year and you divide that by 2,080 hours, which is 40 hours a week times 52 weeks, you will make an hourly rate roughly $24 an hour. That would be what you would give every week in the offertory. Now, you do that calculation and you come out with that amount, or maybe you know what your hourly rate is right off the top. If you can give that, and if you could give the $12.25 for those that are unable to give anything extra, maybe they're furloughed or they haven't found their job yet because they were laid off, or folks that are retired or have fixed incomes and are unable to give any additional money, that will help offset those individuals who are unable to give. That would put us in a very different financial state than we're currently at right now. So we talked about increasing our offertories. Let's just focus a little bit on decreasing expenses. So one thing that the Finance Council is very good about doing every month, probably ad nauseum, is when Chris Kilburn gives the financial statements for that month or for the previous month, each of the members are going through these statements and they're trying to figure out, okay, do these numbers reflect any type of increase that we can find a way to cut? Like, is there anything in here? Let's poke at it, tease out some incidental expenses that we don't need to have any longer in an effort to reduce expenses. And we've done that so much that there really isn't anywhere left to cut from an incidental expense perspective. So now, based on these conversations, Father Vaney has really come to the conclusion that at this point we have to make some significant operational expense cuts to the budget. And so he will be making in the coming weeks a dramatic reduction to our operational expenses in order to change our expense structure and to close the budget deficit. So one of the things I'm completely aware of, and everybody on the Finance Council is aware of, is the pandemic has impacted folks very differently economically, and that there are some folks who just can't give anymore. And in fact, some people probably already stretched thin to start with. So one of the things I do want to make clear is, if you're giving as much as you can, don't feel pressured into giving anything more. No one wants to put a parishioner into financial harm by giving too much. Now, one of the things that we also need to think about, though, to help further decrease our expenses is maybe we can provide and donate our time and talents to the parish. And it's not, we're just looking maybe just one day a month if you can spare it. And it will help contribute your efforts to something that will save the parish money. And so some examples have been, and I know Father Avania raised this at our last meeting, was that a couple of parishioners helped out with clearing some brush. They took their pickup truck, they helped clear some shrubs or something and put it in their pickup truck and hauled it off. And Father Vaney said that if he had a landscaper do it, it probably cost $1,000. So that's $1,000 that the parish didn't have to incur. Another volunteer came in to the parish office and helped with the filing of some office files. So that's time that was spent on doing an activity, and the staff person could focus on other important matters and not have to focus on those issues. So all these things save money and they help us run more efficiently. So if you have any family members that are looking to pick up some community service hours, whether it's for graduation or for any other reason, or just want to help out, please contact the rectory and just schedule some time to come in. Just, even a day, a month would make a big, big difference for us from an expense perspective. So now that Memorial Day is behind us and we're entering into the summer months, just, again, reevaluate your expenses, consider updating your contribution amounts if you can, and especially if you go away, whether it's vacation or just taking a trip somewhere, please make sure to provide your offertories to cover your absence, whether it's through online giving or dropping off the envelopes ahead of time or when you get back. Please make sure that those are covered while you're away. And definitely your time and talents are so greatly appreciated. That not only will help decrease the expenses, but it will establish our St. Matthew the Evangelist community as we emerge from the pandemic. I know I gave a lot of information here, and some folks have questions, some others may have ideas, or they just want to vent their frustration with what I talked about. Feel free to go to the billrickacatholic.org/contacts site, and there's a drop down at the bottom of the webpage here that will allow you to reach out to any of the Finance Council members and share your thoughts or questions. Thank you so much for your time. I know this was a lengthy discussion, but please feel free to reach out, say hello to me in person, and I look forward to seeing everyone in church. Thanks so much, and